Security. Take her away from the gate. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step away from the gate. Captain Aisha Reynolds didn't blink. She held up her FAA license, her airline badge, and pointed to the embroidered wings on her chest. I am the gate, she said. But the gate agent crossed his arms. There's no way you're the pilot. Phones started to rise. One passenger whispered, Are they serious right now? Mrs. Reynolds adjusted her cap and strode past gate B29, her black pilot's uniform pressed and gleaming. She walked with the easy grace of someone who had logged over 15,000 flight hours. But it wasn't her confident stride that drew stares. It was her presence. A black woman, in full pilot's regalia, walking with authority through O'Hare International Airport. That, it seemed, was enough to stop a white gate agent mid-conversation. Ma'am, excuse me. This area is restricted to crew only, the agent snapped, stepping in front of Aisha. She stopped cold, lifting her flight case and ID badge. I am crew. Captain Reynolds, Flight 7421 to Boston. The agent's eyes narrowed. Do you have any identification? Aisha blinked, lips tightening. Yes, she said, holding up her FAA license and company-issued badge. Like I just said, Captain Reynolds. The agent didn't budge. Behind him, another staffer, a young man in khakis and a polo, joined in. You sure this isn't a Halloween costume? He joked, nudging the agent beside him. That's when the woman at the nearby boarding line pulled out her phone and hit record. Because something in the air had shifted. Aisha's jaw set. Are you seriously suggesting I'm impersonating a pilot in front of passengers while wearing my uniform and holding a federal license? Security's been called, the first agent said coolly. Let's just sort this out calmly. A murmur spread through the terminal as phones emerged, red recording lights dotting the space like fireflies. Captain Reynolds didn't move. She didn't have to, because the storm had already begun. Unbelievable, someone muttered near the gate seating. A woman in a hoodie angled her phone higher. This is Chicago O'Hare. You'd think they'd know better. Captain Aisha Reynolds didn't move from where she stood, badge still extended, spine straight. Her voice came steady but louder now, clearly for the room as much as the two airline employees. You are accusing a federally licensed pilot, in uniform, of impersonating a pilot. Do you know what kind of legal implications that has? The younger agent shifted uncomfortably. The older one didn't blink. You'll need to wait for security, he said again, colder this time. A few rows back, a man with a backpack had already gone live on Instagram. Yo, y'all are not gonna believe this. This black woman's getting hassled at the gate. Full-on pilot uniform and everything. They think she's faking. The comments started flooding in. This can't be real. She has her badge out, and they still don't believe her. Hashtag flying while black. Someone cheered quietly when Aisha calmly walked toward the counter and tapped the screen. My name. Right there. Captain Aisha Reynolds. My crew credentials are active. If you scan them, you'll see my status. The woman behind the desk flinched. You can't touch. I'm not touching your equipment, Aisha interrupted. I'm proving who I am. You could have done the same. A pause. A breath. Then, security is approaching, said the loudspeaker above them. The mood shifted from tense to electric. Phone stayed up. Aisha adjusted her cuffs. Her eyes never left the employees blocking her path. She knew what this was. Not about protocol. Not about badges. It was about disbelief. That someone like her could be who she said she was. The TSA officer arrived first, a tall man in a navy vest, flanked by two airport police officers. One hand hovered near his belt as he scanned the crowd. The gate agent waved him over like he'd just caught a shoplifter. There she is, the agent said, jabbing a thumb toward Aisha. Says she's a pilot, but, well, you see. The officer's gaze swept over Aisha. For a split second, confusion flickered in his eyes. She wasn't causing a scene. No raised voice. No erratic movements. Just a calm, professional woman in a pilot's uniform standing still under scrutiny. Ma'am, the officer said, approaching with a measured tone. We've been told there's an issue with your credentials? Aisha didn't flinch. There's no issue. I'm Captain Aisha Reynolds. Flight 7421. These are my credentials. FAA license, ID, even the wings on my chest. They're refusing to verify them. The officer glanced at her ID, then at the gate agent. Have you scanned her badge? The younger employee swallowed. We didn't get the chance. You didn't try. Aisha corrected, her tone sharpened but still controlled. You made an assumption. The officer took her badge and ran it through his own scanner. It beeped once, then flashed green. Captain Reynolds, he confirmed aloud. Cleared for active flight crew. The room held its breath. The gate agent took a small step back. The second agent shifted behind the desk. But Aisha wasn't done. You broadcasted doubt, she said, locking eyes with the gate agent. In front of passengers. On camera. Without ever verifying anything. That's not just disrespect. That's defamation. Another beep echoed. Someone on the live stream whispered, Dom. The officer stepped back, nodding with finality. You're good to go, Captain. But Aisha didn't move. Because now the story wasn't just about her flight. It was about everything that had just happened, with cameras rolling and witnesses watching. A low murmur rolled through the terminal as the officer stepped aside. But Captain Reynolds remained still. Behind her, a teenager holding a phone whispered into her live stream. She's not walking away. Oh, she's about to drop something. Aisha turned, facing the watching crowd. Everyone saw what happened here, she said, her voice clear but unshaken. And I want to make something very plain. The gate agent stiffened. She raised her credentials slightly in the air, license, ID, and crew badge. These aren't just pieces of plastic. They represent 20 years of flight training, thousands of hours in the cockpit, and a responsibility to every soul I carry at 36,000 feet. Click, click. Phones recorded from every angle. I'm used to turbulence at 30,000 feet, she said, but I don't expect it at the gate because someone couldn't imagine a black woman in this uniform. The terminal froze. A man near the window muttered, She said that. The TSA officer gave a subtle nod of respect. Then came a voice from the boarding line. You should go to the news with this. Aisha turned slightly. A white woman holding a baby, visibly shaken. I saw everything. You were calm. You showed them your badge. They still called security. Another woman chimed in. It's not just rude. It's racism. The livestream comment feed exploded. We ride at dawn. Tag the airline. Make it go viral. Now. Where's the CEO when you need him? Captain Reynolds for President FR. Aisha took one slow breath, feeling the weight of the moment. She wasn't angry. She was focused. Because this was no longer about humiliation. It was now about exposure. Within minutes, the video hit Twitter, then TikTok, then Facebook. By the time Aisha stepped into the crew lounge, her name was trending. Hashtag Captain Reynolds. Hashtag Flying While Black. Hashtag Gatecheck Bias. The airline's PR team hadn't even had time to issue a statement before the first headlines appeared. Black female pilot harassed at O'Hare despite full credentials. Passenger captures incident on video. Captain or criminal? Airline staff question real pilot. Social media explodes. Verified and vilified. Airline faces backlash after mistaking pilot for imposter. Inside the break room, a young flight attendant stood frozen, phone in hand. She looked up, eyes wide. Captain Reynolds, it's everywhere. Aisha gave a slight nod, already unlocking her phone. Missed calls, emails, voicemails from reporters. One from her union rep, two from legal. She tapped a text from her supervisor. Do not get on that flight. Meet me in the operations office. Now. She paused. Let the moment sit. Then she walked calmly down the hall. The operations office was sterile, cold, fluorescent lights, gray carpet, a coffee machine that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. But the tension? That was scalding. 3 people were already waiting when Captain Aisha Reynolds entered. Her supervisor, Rick Carter, red-faced and pacing. The regional HR manager, Maya Chun, calm, but avoiding eye contact. An illegal representative from the airline, a woman in a navy suit who hadn't introduced herself. Aisha shut the door behind her. Rick started immediately. What happened out there? This whole thing, it's getting out of hand. Aisha arched an eyebrow. You mean the part where your staff refused to believe I was a pilot? Or the part where they called security on me in front of a plane full of passengers? Rick opened his mouth, then closed it. Maya finally looked up. We're reviewing the footage internally. But in the meantime, we'd like to offer a statement of regret, if you're willing to record one with us. A statement? Aisha asked. You want me to help you control the fallout? The legal rep finally spoke. Captain Reynolds, the brand is under attack. We need to manage this before it impacts operations. Aisha stepped forward. The brand is under attack because 2 employees saw a black woman in uniform and decided it couldn't be real. Rick threw up his hands. There's no proof that race had anything to do with it. I was standing next to a white male first officer, Aisha replied. Same uniform, same badge. They waved him through. Silence. Maya looked down again. The lawyer sighed. If you want to keep this out of national media, now's the time to be strategic. Aisha gave a small, cold smile. You think I'm afraid of the media? And just like that, the balance in the room shifted. Because Captain Reynolds wasn't negotiating. She was preparing for takeoff. You think I'm afraid of the media? The words hovered in the air like a jet held in midair, waiting for clearance. Captain Aisha Reynolds didn't raise her voice, but the quiet in the room made it feel louder than any storm outside the terminal. Rick sat down, deflated. Maya shifted in her seat. The legal rep finally closed her folder. You're escalating this, Rick muttered. No, Aisha said, voice precise. You escalated at the moment you decided my uniform and credentials weren't enough. You turned a captain into a suspect in front of cameras. She tapped her phone. There are already over 3 million views on that video. Comments from pilots, passengers, even former employees. The industry's watching. Maya cleared her throat. Look, Captain Reynolds, the airline needs time to respond. You had time, Aisha interrupted. From the moment I showed my license, you had time. You chose to delay, disbelieve, and dismiss. That's a pattern, and I'm not here to play along. Rick tried again. We can fix this if we move quickly. Aisha folded her arms. Then start with a real apology, not a sanitized press release. And I want those 2 gate agents held accountable, not quietly moved to another airport. The lawyer leaned forward. If you're implying legal action, I'm implying leadership, Aisha said. Because I'm not just a pilot. As of last month, I was promoted to Regional Director of Operations. Rick's face went pale. I came to inspect airport compliance today, she continued. But it looks like the first inspection I'll be conducting is your entire staff. The room stilled. She straightened her jacket, calm and unshaken. You didn't believe I was a pilot. Maybe now you'll believe I'm your boss. Rick's jaw worked soundlessly, like he was chewing on words too sharp to swallow. Maya blinked slowly, her composure cracking. You're the new regional director? Aisha nodded. Promoted 2 weeks ago. Effective immediately. My responsibilities include operational oversight, employee conduct evaluations, and compliance reviews at every hub in this region, including O'Hare. The lawyer's face paled, and for the first time, she stopped flipping pages. Rick leaned back, as if trying to physically distance himself from his own mistake. You came to observe the airport, Maya said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. I came to observe how frontline staff interact with passengers and crew, Aisha said. And what I witnessed was a textbook case of implicit bias leading to public humiliation. For me, for this company, and now, for everyone who tried to cover it. A long, uncomfortable silence followed. Then, Aisha pulled a small notebook from her flight case. She flipped to a page already filled with notes. I've already documented the incident. Time-stamped video evidence. Witness names. I've spoken with legal from corporate. They're monitoring everything, including how leadership here responds next. She looked up. So let me ask you, what's your move? Maya sat up straighter. Captain Reynolds, I'll take this directly to corporate. You have my word. The lawyer closed her folder. You'll receive a formal response by tomorrow morning. Rick's voice cracked. What about the gate agents? Aisha looked at him flatly. You're not asking the right question, she said. The question isn't what happens to them. It's what happens to this culture. She stood, collecting her notes. And the answer is, It's about to change. By the time Captain Aisha Reynolds stepped out of the operations office, her phone was a war zone. Texts from fellow pilots. We saw the video. We've got your back. Calls from advocacy groups offering support. An email from the National Black Pilots Association requesting a statement. And at the top of her inbox, a subject line from corporate. Urgent. Senior executive leadership call. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Aisha walked briskly through the terminal, the very space where she'd been humiliated just hours earlier. This time, heads turned not in confusion, but in recognition. That's her, someone whispered. She's the one from the video, right? Passengers stood. Some even clapped quietly. Others simply nodded with quiet respect. The same teenage girl from the live stream caught her eye and mouthed, "Thank you." Aisha gave a slight nod and kept walking. She entered the crew lounge where a few pilots were watching news coverage on a mounted TV. The viral video of Captain Aisha Reynolds has sparked a firestorm of reactions across the aviation industry, raising questions about racial bias, protocol enforcement, and the perception of professionalism in the skies. A male pilot looked up from the screen. They messed with the wrong captain. Aisha gave him a faint smile. No, they messed with the right one at the wrong time. She glanced at the time. 20 minutes until her call with corporate. And she wasn't going to waste a second. Because the storm wasn't over. It was just reaching cruising altitude. The virtual meeting room opened with the click of a button. On screen, 4 squares. Top left, Elaine Sorensen, VP of Operations. Top right, Jamal Price, Head of Diversity and Ethics. Bottom left, Mitchell Crane, General Counsel. Bottom right, Captain Aisha Reynolds, Regional Director of Operations. Elaine leaned in first. Captain Reynolds, we've seen the footage. We want to start by saying, we're appalled. Aisha's face was calm. Appalled isn't enough. Appalled doesn't fix the systems that allow this to keep happening. Jamal nodded. Social media is exploding. There are calls for boycotts, press requests, and frankly, employees are scared. They're watching how we respond. Crane cleared his throat. We're preparing a formal statement. We'll place both gate agents on immediate administrative leave, pending investigation. HR at O'Hare is being overhauled. But we need your input. Aisha folded her hands. You don't need a statement. You need a reckoning. Silence. Then she continued. This isn't just about me. This is about how many black and brown professionals have been doubted in uniform, questioned, undermined, humiliated. I just happened to be on camera. Elaine spoke softly. What do you suggest? Aisha's voice didn't waver. Full-scale anti-bias retraining across all hubs. A permanent internal accountability council, composed of diverse flight crew, not just corporate reps, and a public commitment, not just to equity, but to culture change. Crane hesitated. That's a lot to implement quickly. It's overdue, Aisha said. I've got passengers who trust me with their lives. I expect the same trust from the company whose wings I wear. Jamal leaned forward. If we back you, will you help lead this? Aisha met his gaze. I already am. By morning, the airline's homepage had changed. We stand with Captain Aisha Reynolds. Below it, a video. Aisha stood in uniform, the runway behind her, the wind lifting the edges of her navy blue jacket. Yesterday, I was stopped at the gate, not by security protocols, but by disbelief. Disbelief that someone like me could be someone in command. But I am, and I always have been. This isn't about shame, it's about change. We're transforming how this airline trains, hires, promotes, and protects its people. Not because of a scandal, but because of a truth we can't ignore anymore. The video cut to clips of other black and brown airline professionals, mechanics, attendants, pilots, standing proudly in their uniforms. Representation isn't optics. It's safety. It's trust. It's dignity. In the first 12 hours, the video reached 9.6 million views. News anchors picked it up. Civil rights leaders reposted it. Even competitor airlines were forced to respond with their own reviews of internal practices. Back at O'Hare, the same gate that had once held tension now held something else entirely. Posters went up that morning. Meet your crew. Trust their wings. Featuring Aisha's face. Her credentials. Her title. Passengers gathered near the sign, some taking selfies, others just staring, quietly taking in what progress could look like when someone refused to back down. The fallout inside the company wasn't just external. Internal message boards lit up, some praising the reforms, others, not so quietly resisting them. One anonymous post from a veteran pilot read, "Let's not turn the flight deck into a political battleground. We're here to fly, not to hashtag." But that was met with dozens of replies. Then maybe stop policing who looks like they belong on the flight deck. You weren't the one humiliated at the gate. Leadership starts with listening. We're doing that now. In private meetings, a few senior managers tried to downplay what had happened, hoping it would fade from headlines. It didn't, because every day, a news story surfaced. A Latina flight attendant forced to prove she could speak English. An Asian American mechanic mistaken for a janitor, twice. A Muslim pilot repeatedly pulled for random checks. The floodgates were open, and the culture that once operated in shadows was now lit in full glare. Captain Reynolds wasn't everywhere, but her impact was. In team briefings, her story became a case study. In diversity training, her name was cited like a spark. In casual conversations, her calm defiance echoed like a challenge. She had become a mirror, and not everyone liked what they saw reflected back. 3 weeks after the incident, the airline held a closed-door leadership summit, something they hadn't done in over a decade. The CEO, board members, union reps, and senior directors sat in a sleek conference room overlooking the runways. At the head of the table, Captain Aisha Reynolds. Not as a guest, not as a token, but as the newly appointed chair of the Equity and Aviation Task Force, a position created in direct response to what had happened at Gate B29. "I'm not here to check boxes," she said, voice steady. "I'm here to rewrite the checklist." She laid out a 6-month plan that included real-time crew authentication upgrades to prevent future gate-level discrimination, anonymous reporting channels for racial bias incidents, staff and passengers alike, promotions tied to cultural competence, not just flight time, quarterly audits published publicly. The CEO, who had originally tried to handle the situation quietly, now nodded with full-throated support. The board voted unanimously to fund the reforms. But it wasn't just about policies. It was about presence. Aisha, in that room, wasn't a symbol. She was proof. Proof that truth-telling doesn't end careers, it reshapes industries. The next flight Aisha captained was different. Not because of the route. It was the same Chicago to Boston leg she'd flown dozens of times. Not because of the weather. It was clear skies all the way. It was the energy. As she entered the cockpit, her first officer, a young Indian man named Raj, stood and said, "Captain Reynolds, it's an honor to fly with you." Aisha smiled. "Let's just make sure we land smoother than corporate did last month." Laughter. Then focus. As passengers boarded, a small boy paused at the entrance to the aircraft, eyes wide. His mother whispered, "That's her." Aisha knelt slightly, offered him her pilot wings pin, and said, "One day, you're going to fly higher than I ever have. You just remember, you belong up here." The boy beamed, clutching the pin. Later, midair, the intercom crackled on. Aisha's voice filled the cabin. "Good afternoon, passengers. This is your captain speaking. From 36,000 feet above, I just want to say thank you for trusting us to carry you. Not just across states, but across moments, across change." In the back of the plane, a passenger quietly wiped a tear. Because somehow, even from the flight deck, she was still leading. Still pushing boundaries. Still reminding people, representation doesn't end at the gate. 6 months later, the industry looked different. The reforms that began with one confrontation at Chicago O'Hare had rippled far beyond that gate. Airlines across the country followed suit, revising training protocols, investing in diverse hiring pipelines, and, for the first time, publishing racial equity reports alongside safety data. Captain Aisha Reynolds now spoke at aviation academies, regulatory conferences, and international summits, not as a symbol of controversy, but as a blueprint for change. At one event, a young black cadet nervously approached her. I wasn't sure if I belonged here, he said. Then I saw your video. Aisha smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. You don't belong because of me. You belong because of you. But if my story opened the door, then walk through it. And hold it open for someone else. In the background, a new mural was being unveiled at O'Hare International, commissioned by the airport in her honor. It showed a black woman in a pilot's uniform standing confidently on a runway, her shadow stretching upward into the outline of an aircraft climbing skyward. Beneath it, etched in silver, Captain Aisha Reynolds, breaking ceilings at every altitude. She didn't ask for fame. She asked for respect. What she got was something deeper, a reckoning that lifted not just her career, but the industry itself. And in the end, what began as a confrontation turned into a flight path for generations to come. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.